What kind of person screams at a teenager over a missing pickle? Karen stood at the Shake Shack counter, her voice a piercing siren that silenced the lunchtime chatter. Her face, flushed with rage, twisted into a snarl as she jabbed a manicured finger at Mia, the 19-year-old cashier. "You incompetent little brat. I said extra pickles. Do you even know how to do your job?" The words sliced through the air, sharp and venomous. Mia, her hands trembling slightly, clutched the edge of the counter, her brown eyes wide but steady. The line of customers behind Karen shifted uncomfortably, their murmurs fading into a tense hush. This wasn't just a complaint, it was a performance, a public execution of dignity. Karen's designer sunglasses perched atop her head glinted under the fluorescent lights, a crown for her self-appointed reign of terror. She didn't care who watched. She thrived on it. Mia had been working at Shake Shack for 6 months, saving every penny for community college. She was used to the occasional grumpy customer, but Karen was different. Her tirade wasn't about the pickle, it was about power. Mia's manager, Javier, a wiry man with a calm demeanor, stepped forward from the grill. "Ma'am, please lower your voice," he said evenly. Karen whipped around, her oversized handbag swinging like a weapon. "Don't you dare tell me what to do. I'm a paying customer, and I demand respect." The irony hung heavy in the air. Respect was the last thing Karen offered. The other cashier, Sarah, a quiet girl with a knack for de-escalation, exchanged a glance with Mia. They'd dealt with Karens before, but this one was a storm. Karen's voice grew louder, her complaints spiraling into absurdity. "This place is a disgrace. You're all lazy, probably spitting in my food." The accusation landed like a slap. Mia's cheeks burned, not from guilt but from the sheer audacity. She'd spent her shift meticulously assembling orders, double-checking every detail to avoid mistakes. The pickles were a simple oversight, one she'd already offered to fix. But Karen didn't want a solution. She wanted a fight. Javier stepped closer, his voice firm but controlled. "Ma'am, we're happy to remake your order, but you need to stop yelling." Karen's eyes narrowed, her lips curling into a smirk. "Oh, you're going to regret this," she hissed, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling corporate. You're all fired." The threat hung in the air, but Mia felt a spark of defiance ignite within her. She wasn't going to let this woman ruin her day or her job. She'd seen enough TikToks and Reddit threads to know how Karens operated. They bullied, they manipulated, and they expected to win. But Mia had something Karen didn't evidence. Unbeknownst to Karen, the Shake Shack had recently installed new security cameras with audio, a precaution after a string of customer disputes. Every word Karen spat was being recorded, her tantrum preserved for posterity. Mia caught Javier's eye, and he gave a subtle nod. They weren't just fighting back, they were building a case. Karen's tirade continued, her voice a relentless assault. She mocked Mia's appearance, calling her sloppy and unfit for customer service. She turned on Javier, accusing him of being an incompetent manager who probably can't even speak English properly. The racism stung, but Javier didn't flinch. He'd heard worse in his decade of working fast food. What Karen didn't know was that Javier had a law degree from his home country, one he couldn't use in the States without costly recertification. He wasn't just a manager, was a strategist, and he knew how to handle people like her. "Ma'am," he said, his voice cutting through her rant, "if you continue to harass my staff, we'll have to ask you to leave." Karen laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You can't kick me out. I'm a customer." But Javier was already moving, signaling to Sarah to call security. The customers in line, now openly staring, began to whisper. A young woman in a hoodie pulled out her phone, recording the scene. Karen noticed and spun toward her. "What are you doing? Stop filming me!" she shrieked, lunging toward the woman's phone. The customer, unfazed, stepped back and kept recording. "This is a public place," she said coolly. "You're making a scene." Karen's face reddened further, her composure unraveling. She hadn't expected resistance, not from the staff, not from the crowd. The power she wielded so confidently was slipping through her fingers. Mia, still behind the counter, felt her heart race. She wasn't just defending herself, she was defending her team, her dignity, her right to exist in this space without being torn down. She glanced at the clock. 5 minutes until the security guard, a retired cop named Tony, would arrive. 5 minutes to endure. Karen, oblivious to the ticking clock, doubled down. I'm going to sue this place. You'll all be out of jobs by tomorrow. Her threats were losing their edge, repetitive and desperate. Mia took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the chaos. Ma'am, we've offered to fix your order. If you don't want that, you're free to leave. The words were polite but firm, a line in the sand. Karen froze, her eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, she seemed to realize she wasn't in control. The air in the Shake Shack crackled with tension, the kind that makes your skin prickle. Karen's pause was brief, a predator recalculating before the next strike. She leaned over the counter, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You think you're smart, don't you? You think you can talk to me like that? Mia held her ground, her hands steady now. She'd found her rhythm, a quiet strength born from knowing she wasn't alone. Javier stood beside her, his presence a silent anchor. Sarah, back from calling security, busied herself with wiping down the counter, her movements deliberate, a signal that they weren't backing down. The customer with the phone kept filming, her lens a silent witness to Karen's unraveling. Then came the twist, a detail Karen couldn't have foreseen. The young woman filming wasn't just a random bystander, she was Lisa, a local food blogger with a modest but loyal following. Her ex-account, at Bite the City, had 10,000 followers who trusted her reviews. She'd come to Shake Shack for a quick lunch, but now she was live tweeting the meltdown, her captions sharp and unsparing. Karen alert at Shake Shack, screaming at staff over pickles. Stay classy. The post was gaining traction, retweets piling up as Karen's outburst became a viral spectacle. Lisa's phone pinged with notifications, each one a tiny dagger to Karen's ego. She didn't know it yet, but her tantrum was no longer confined to the restaurant, it was a public reckoning. Karen, oblivious to her growing infamy, turned her wrath back to Javier. You're the worst manager I've ever seen. I bet you're stealing from the register. The accusation was absurd, but it hit a nerve. Javier's jaw tightened, his calm facade cracking just enough to reveal the anger beneath. He'd sacrificed too much his pride. His dreams of practicing lotto be accused of theft by someone who couldn't even pronounce his name right. Ma'am, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You're crossing a line. Leave now or we'll escort you out. Karen scoffed, but her confidence wavered. The crowd was no longer neutral. A man in a business suit muttered, "Just go already," and a teenager in line nodded in agreement. The tide was turning. That's when Tony, the security guard, arrived. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, his gray hair cropped close, his eyes sharp with experience. He'd seen every kind of trouble in his years on the force, and Karen was just another bully in a long line of them. What's the problem here? He asked, his voice calm but commanding. Karen spun toward him, sensing a new target. Finally, someone with authority. These idiots messed up my order and insulted me. Tony raised an eyebrow, glancing at Mia, who shook her head slightly. He'd worked with her long enough to trust her word over a screaming stranger's. Ma'am, he said, I've been listening from the door. You're the one causing a disturbance. It's time to leave. Karen's face contorted, a mix of shock and outrage. You can't do this. I have rights, she shrieked, her voice hitting a pitch that made the customers wince. Tony didn't budge. You have the right to leave quietly, or I can call the police. Your choice. The word police was a jolt, a crack in Karen's armor. For the first time, she seemed to realize the consequences of her actions. Her eyes darted to the crowd, to Lisa's phone, to the staff standing united behind the counter. She was losing, and she knew it. But Karen wasn't one to go quietly. She grabbed her handbag, slung it over her shoulder, and stormed toward the door, shouting, You'll hear from my lawyer. The door slammed behind her, the glass rattling in its frame. The restaurant exhaled, the tension dissipating like smoke. Mia's shoulders sagged, relief washing over her. Javier clapped her on the back, a rare smile breaking through. You handled that like a pro, he said. Sarah grinned, tossing the rag she'd been clutching into a bin. The customers broke into spontaneous applause, a small but powerful affirmation. Lisa, still filming, typed a final tweet. Karen escorted out. Shake Shack staff are heroes. The post went viral, racking up thousands of likes within minutes. Mia didn't know it yet, but her stand against Karen would become a local legend. But the story wasn't over. Outside, Karen stood on the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear as she ranted to a friend. They humiliated me. I'm going to ruin them, she vowed, her voice carrying through the open window. Inside, Javier was already pulling the security footage, his fingers steady as he saved the file. He knew Karen's type. They didn't stop until they faced real consequences. And he had a plan. Karen's world began to crumble the moment she stepped outside. She didn't know it, but the video Lisa posted had spread like wildfire across X, amassing views and comments that painted her as the villain she'd become. Entitled "Karen Gets What She Deserves," one user wrote. Another posted a meme of a screaming woman with Karen's face photoshopped onto it. The internet was merciless, and Karen's outburst was now a cautionary tale. Back inside the Shake Shack, Javier sent the security footage to corporate, along with a detailed report. He wasn't just protecting his team, was ensuring Karen faced the consequences of her actions. The footage was damning. Every insult, every threat, every moment of her tirade captured in high definition. 2 days later, Karen returned, her demeanor smug as she marched to the counter. She hadn't learned her lesson. She doubled down. "I want to speak to the manager," she demanded, her voice dripping with condescension. Javier stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "That's me," he said. Karen smirked, holding up a letter from her lawyer. "This is a formal complaint. You're going to pay for humiliating me." Javier didn't flinch. He'd been expecting this. "Ma'am," he said, "we've already sent the security footage to corporate and the local police. Your behavior was recorded, including your threats and harassment." Karen's smirk faltered, her eyes widening. "You can't do that," she stammered. "That's illegal." Javier shook his head. "It's a public space and you were warned. You chose to continue." The police report was filed that afternoon. Karen's threats of a lawsuit fizzled when her lawyer saw the footage. No one would take her case, not when the evidence was so clear. Corporate banned her from all Shake Shack locations, a decision backed by the viral video and customer support. Lisa's post had sparked a movement, with people sharing their own stories of standing up to bullies. The hashtag Shake Shack Heroes trended for days, with Mia, Javier, and Sarah hailed as symbols of resilience. Karen, meanwhile, faced a different kind of justice. Her employer, a local real estate firm, saw the video. Her behavior didn't align with their values, and she was quietly let go. Her social circle shrank as friends distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with her infamy. Karen's downfall was swift and complete. She'd built her identity on control, on bending others to her will, but that power was an illusion. The world had seen her for who she was, and it wasn't forgiving. Mia, on the other hand, found herself at the center of something bigger. Customers left tips with notes of encouragement, and a local scholarship fund reached out, offering to cover her tuition. She hadn't just survived Karen's wrath, she'd inspired others to stand up, to speak out, to refuse to be silenced. Months later, Mia stood behind the counter, her confidence unshaken. The Shake Shack was busier than ever, a testament to the staff's strength and the community's support. Javier had started studying for his U.S. law exams, his dream of practicing again within reach. Sarah, emboldened by the experience, was training to become a shift leader. And Karen? She was a fading memory, a cautionary tale whispered in line when someone got too loud. The world moved on, but it didn't forget. Mia looked out at the bustling restaurant, her heart full. She'd faced a storm and come out stronger, a reminder that even the smallest voices can roar when they stand together.